Thank you for browsing page 121. Today we're going to go back in time to 40 years ago to June 1984. We're going to look at our copy of Dragon Magazine number 86. I love this cover. I always have loved any of the chess covers that Dragon did. I thought were just outstanding. We're still holding at $3 on this guy and have for several years by this point. So what's inside? Inside, you get to create the masterpiece of your imagination. All things dark and dangerous. Rel Partha. Oh, I love Rel Partha. Rel Partha has some really nice stuff. I have this guy, and I believe I have this guy. I'm not sure. A lot of my lead figures came to me by way of people who traded me some stuff for them, or more often than not, people who left the game for whatever reason. I had run into them, and 2 months later, and they'd say, "Oh, you're still interested in that stuff?" I'd say, "Sure." So I got a lot of sets that weren't complete because of that, but that's okay. I still have them. Next, we have an ad for Iron Crown Enterprises. Discover the action-packed world of Loremaster. Iron Crown Enterprises, Chartmaster guys. These guys had a lot of rules. Our table of contents for June 1984 with Kim Maughan giving us a nice little editorial. Out on a Limb, letters from the readers. Continuing the letters, we go to the standard James Bond, the Victory Games world of James Bond 007, role-playing in her, now his, Majesty's Secret Service. They're out of New York, New York. Never did play that game. I saw it on the shelves all the time, but we were playing Top Secret at the time, so we didn't bother with it. The forum, opinions and observations from readers. These would be good sometimes. I didn't read them all the time, but sometimes I would, and you'd get some ideas in there, how other people ran their games. Pre-internet, this is how we did it. Be all that you can dream with heroes. Avalon Hill's role-playing magazine. Avalon Hill out of Baltimore, Maryland. Ecology of the Slithering Tracker by Ed Greenwood. I have to admit, I never used Slithering Trackers all that much. I've put one or two in over the years. They're just kind of creepy monsters. There's not a ton of opportunity to defend yourself against them if the circumstances are just right. That's why I tend not to use them a bunch. Then we get the rest of the article, and we get Cast Your Own Fantasy Figures, a special offer from the Duncan Company out of Calvert, Texas. Daredevils have adventures and lands of adventure from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Familiars with special use, new pets that match the magic users who call them. I like familiars. I've got to take a look at the Find Familiar spell in D&D on the channel one of these days, because it's absolutely one of the more controversial. We've used it. We've had plenty of characters walking around with familiars, but the penalty you pay under the actual rules as written for having a familiar is a little stiff. We can add for Diamond Dice, Master Dice sets out of Park Ridge, Illinois, not too far from where I live. The Worlds of Boris Vallejo. I always love Boris's artwork. From Mayfair Games in Chicago, Illinois. Continuing on about our familiars, we get Feudal Lords, the original medieval play-by-mail game out of St. Clair Shores, Michigan. Games Workshop presents Citadel Miniatures. Giant picture here shown actual size. That's pretty cool, actually. That's a good-sized giant, especially because considering that these were metal. That was a big boy. The only problem with the metal ones, and the reason I do like the plastic ones a little bit more, the molded plastic ones, is because if you drop it, you don't regret it. Usually they just bounce. Metal ones didn't. You could bend them, or more seriously, you could break limbs off. But we get these Citadel Miniatures boxed sets, and they're all $10 each, except for 8025, which is the Orc War Machine, and that's $16. And then stock number 8042, which I'm guessing is this dude. This guy was $135? Wow. Wow, okay. Well, he better be big for that. Going on. Continuing on with our familiars, we got to look at Nova Game Designs out of Manchester, Connecticut. We've taken the dice out of fighting. This was another one of those picture book games where you would I would have a book, you would have a book, and then we would oppose each other based on what the pages showed. Battletech started out a little bit like that. Now we got an ad for Space Opera, a really interesting kind of Traveler clone. Bushido and Villains and Vigilantes from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Played these two, Space Opera and Villains and Vigilantes, out of Roslyn, New York. Continuing on our rather long article about familiars, we get a Thieves Guild special offer. Game Lords Limited is proud to announce revised second edition of their acclaimed Thieves Guild. I read the Thieves Guild. I think I borrowed it from a friend. I incorporated a few things into our game, but not a ton. And I read some of the Thieves Guild short stories. Didn't really resonate with me. This from Game Lords Limited in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Battle Mats and Mega Mats. These were getting bigger and bigger by the mid-80s. This is from Sleuth Publications in San Francisco, California. These are the dry erase maps. These are very handy. I had one of these back at this. I bought it at Gen Con, I think in 84. Campaign series, game grid sheets. Not easy to come by back in the 80s. Out of Oakland, California. Indicia Associates out of Oakland, California. Game grid sheets, we were all using graph paper that was left over from school. At least that's what I was using. Continuing on our very long article on familiars. Again, I like familiars. We had to revise the rules, so one day I will do a video about how we revised those rules. Gladiators, exciting new play-by-mail game. Tempe, Arizona. Never played a play-by-mail. The Companions, role-play campaign, and adventure game AIDS. The Islandia campaign series out of Bath, Maine. Continuing on, finally finishing with our familiars, we go to Rapham Company Incorporated, Armies of the Hellenistic Period. For Canadians only. Due to licensing requirements, this range is only for sale in Canadian customers. So we couldn't get these down here in the States, although we actually had a hobby store near here that had a Canadian connection, so we were able to get some of that stuff. Don't tell the authorities, because 40 years ago they could have been a problem. Not only is that hobby store gone, the plaza that the hobby store was in has been leveled, so I don't think that'll be a problem. The Warrior Alternative, generating non-magical characters for the DQ game, Dragon Quest. I played Dragon Quest a couple of times under a GM. It wasn't bad. I had a Dwarven Lycanthrope, as I recall. We had some fun with it. And then we've got an ad for an amulet. These are the actual size amulets, $7.75 each. And then we've got Recon, the role-playing game of the Vietnam War, because the last American heroes weren't in World War II. And this is out of Alvin, Texas. 5 new enchanted objects. Magic items you won't find in the AD&D books. I love these things. These are wonderful. And these, of course, they rolled into the Encyclopedia Magica a few years later in the 90s, where they took every magic item they had published and threw them all together into 4 big source books and sold those. Those things are just wonderful resources. Superheroes, super games, super figures. The #1 superhero role-playing game, Champions by Hero Games. I have this set. We use the heck out of these because we always played with miniatures, and it was hard to get miniatures for superhero games at the time. No HeroClix at the time. Hero Games out of San Mateo, California, and these were Grenadier models out of Springfield, Pennsylvania. I have both those. I have that book too. Love Champions. Champions game we still play. Denizen, 25mm fantasy miniatures from Prestige Hobby Products. Sussex, Great Britain. And then continue the magic items up there. Label your letter so they know where your letter came from. Do unto others before they do unto you. Congress is controlled by the Mafia. South American Nazis are plotting the final Reich, etc., etc. Illuminati, play by mail from Steve Jackson Games. Presenting the Sewell Pantheon, adding the background for Greyhawk campaigns by Leonard Lakofka. I took a look at some of these guys about a year and a half ago on the channel. I love the Sewell Pantheon. I love what Leonard Lakofka did with them. And then we've got an ad for coming soon, Secret of Skull Island. Skull Island, of course, is where King Kong famously hung out. And Dragon's Den, TSR's new adventure game, up to 6 players. Don't know either one of those, actually. Continuing on, we're finishing up the deities, index to advertisers, and then we get Strike Enterprises out of Lynn, Massachusetts. Pouches any merchant would be proud to bear, or cut purse to pilfer. Oh, dice pouches. Those, again, were not that easy to come by. I bought my first dice pouch at a hobby store, and then I bought another at Gen Con in the 90s. And the one I have now, I actually bought at Adepticon about 10 years ago. It's a nice leather one. It cost me all of $5, and it's beautiful. We're more than simply amazing. A whole new look for a whole new magazine. And this is published out of, this is going to Dragon Publishing in Chicago, Illinois. You've got the imagination. Now you need the personalities. Ral Partha Enterprises. I love Ral Partha. These are so pretty. Dragons and their deities. The lowdown on how and why they worship. Interesting about dragons and their deities. It is something I've included in games. I find that adds a lot of depth and gives lots of role-playing for the characters, but also for my NPCs. Why is the dragon doing what he's doing? He's not simply being a stereotypical dragon. He's doing it in worship of his deity. I just found this pretty interesting. I used this article, but others also. This is not the last word on the topic, but it helped. It definitely helped. The Armory. New Super O's. They're super opaque acrylic dice. If you wanted highfalutin dice back in the mid-'80s, it was definitely going to be the Armory for you. And they're available at finer game stores near you. And Illinois is out of alphabetical order here from Indiana. And we have Mount Prospect Games Plus. Been there many times. Waukegan Pegasus Hobbies, no. If anybody knows if Pegasus Hobbies is still there, please let me know. Up in Waukegan, Illinois. Your vote counts for the 10th Annual Strategist Club Awards. So you can vote for Outstanding Board Game, Outstanding Role-Playing Game, Outstanding Game Open Category, Outstanding Game Play Aid, Outstanding Miniature Figure Line, anything released in 83 for any of these, and Outstanding Gaming Magazine. So anything released in 1983 was eligible for this award. Great Stony, build your own cardboard castle. I was never crafty enough to do this kind of thing. I believe my wife and I, we were dating at the time. I showed her this article. She looked at it. She's much more crafty than I am, but we might have bought a few parts to start it, but I don't think we ever got very far with it. From concept to cardboard, this is actually really cool. I like this. I wish I could be artistic like this, but I can't. I don't even paint well. And there you go. I didn't want to tear this out of my dragon, so we were toying with buying a second copy so we could cut it. But then when we really looked at what it all entailed, we said, nah, we don't have the skills for this. So we didn't go any further. We did toy with the idea of doing it on our own without tearing up the Dragon magazine, but we didn't do that either. So the original design and floor plans by Arthur Collins. 3D design and structural drawing, Dennis Kauth. Roger Raup for the graphic rendering, and everything Arthur didn't write, Kim Mohan. There you have it. That's a nice little offering for a $3 magazine. You have the opportunity to build yourself an entire castle. Don't turn out the lights. Chill is coming from Pace Setter out of Delavan, Wisconsin. Chill Adventures into the Unknown is Pace Setter's spine-tingling role-playing game of horror and suspense. A little Cthulhu knockoff there. Mizzy. Charles R. Saunders gives us some nice article, on some nice fiction, rather, in this particular run. And then we get right on. Got a question about an article. Go ahead and write to TSR. And then Earthwood, Dawn of the Ancients from Miami, Florida, set in a fantasy world. Earthwood is a strategic play-by-mail game. Game review. Battlesuit salutes salutes infantry. I'm not familiar with Battlesuit. Review of it from Steve Jackson Games. Fantasy Enclave, only fair. Uh-oh, that's not good. They even kind of mock it with the PH. And then finishing out the reviews, and then the forum from up front. More than just role-playing, experience the complete fantasy series. Role here, of course, being a reference to just throwing dice, where you would not do that with this one. You would make your character the way you wanted it. By this point, a lot of us were, these guys are in Connecticut. By this point, a lot of us were more mature role players, those of us who were still playing by 84, which was a very sizable chunk of my group. We had all kind of matured a little bit, and we were easing up a little bit as far as if you want to make a character. I had one guy who wanted to desperately create like a James Bond type assassin, where he would be like a lawful neutral, and I allowed it. It was fun. He never really did much with it, but he wanted Bond, so I did it. Gen Con 17, August 16th through 19th, 1984. I was at that one. It was my very first Gen Con. And then we go to the Ares gaming section. I always loved this. This became kind of my flip to area for Dragon Magazine by this time. We get the nice table of contents. The Moon of Gamma World is in this issue. And then we got a guide to supervillain groups. Know Your Enemy by James Ryan. Nice supervillain tips. Nice superhero gaming tips. Superhero gaming was tough because you weren't going toe-to-toe and fighting melee all the time. There were powers being shot across the table, lightning, whatever. And it was a new, different way to run a game. You had to deal with distances and what happened there. And just made it a little bit more challenging, especially before we had a lot of good terrain. A World Gone Mad, the Moon of Gamma World. I actually took a look at this article a year or two ago for Gamma World. I love these moon articles. This is one of my favorite things. I thought it was a great way to kick off this Ares section. And then we get Furious Action on the Final Frontier, Star Trek III Starship Combat Game. Where could I get this in Illinois? Buyer's Hobby in Woodstock, Friends Hobby in Waukegan, Games Plus, Mount Prospect. They're still around. Mini Mall Hobbies in Granite City. Okay. From FASA, which operated out of Chicago. Fast and Deadly. New starships for the Star Frontiers Nighthawks game. That was pretty cool. We were playing Star Frontiers. Haven't played a ton of Nighthawks yet, but we were getting into it a little bit. It was nice to just get a couple of new ships. I like Star Frontiers Nighthawks. It's a fun system. Interstellar Athletes, a Traveler game variant career. I like this. Anything new for Traveler was pretty darn exciting, and just getting it in your issue of the Dragon was really good. A new Starfire coming this month from Task Force Games. Starfire was a space combat game system. Never played it. Always interested in it. And then continuing on our Traveler thing, ends, of course, appropriately in a Traveler article from Game Designers Workshop. Traveler science fiction adventure in the far future. And this is when Traveler was moving away from the pamphlet-sized books and moving into the bigger books. They're departing from the LBBs, the little black books, and going into magazine-sized books. Star Questions, questions and answers and advice on Gamma World Gaming. This would have been for Gamma World 2nd edition. Very useful. Beyond the Quadrazone, the year is 2615. Interstellar travel has been commonplace for centuries. You can play this from Quest Games in Oakland, New Jersey. Continue out our Gamma World article. We go to Silver Dawn, $5,000 Quest tournament out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And then we get the science fiction gaming adventure calendar. So again, get your time machine. You can zip along and you can go to Origins 84 in Dallas, Texas. Pretty cool, actually. Origins 84, a Texas-sized show. Atlanticon 84, August 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Towson, Maryland. Capture your fantasy through our newest generation of characters, games, and accessories. From Wargames, our superior products available at these better stores near you. Games Plus Hobbies, Pegasus Hobbies in Waukegan, Phoenix Military Models in Winfield, and Royal Hobby in Rockford. I was actually at Royal Hobby. Got some Traveler stuff there. Told that story on the channel years ago. Went in just to stop. My wife and I were up there for a weekend. Went into Royal Hobbies just because I saw it, and came out with a shopping bag full of Traveler stuff that I never saw before or since. Paid about $1 each. Very lucky find. Gamer's Guide. That would have been in 87 or 88. Gamer's Guide. So just some more ads for stuff you can pick up. TSR was pretty savvy with how they got their ads. And of course, Dragon Magazine sold a lot of issues. We got one page of Wormy. And then we got some Dragon Mirth. One little thing there. Teleland. Not sure what that is. And then, of course, Snarf Quest. I always got 2 or 3 pages of Snarf Quest. And then Bug-Eyed Monsters. They Want Our Women. And this is from West End Games. Just another role-playing game, or this is more of a tabletop type game. It was $10. And then the back always belongs to Middle-earth Role-Playing, a complete system for venturing in J.R.R. Tolkien's world from Iron Crown Enterprises. We get all the modules that they had, and I had a few of those over the years. They were pretty good. But there you have it. That's a look at Dragon from June 1984, 40 years ago this month. Really good issue. Lots of good stuff in here. Love the Ares section. That became one of my favorite things about Dragon. They would continue the Ares through about 87, I want to say. I'd have to double check that, but I think it was right around there. While Marvel Superheroes was still really popular, the Ares section stayed in Dragon. But there you have it. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them below. Like and subscribe if you would. Take a look at the Patreon, see if you can help me out there. And I'll see you next time on page 121.